All right. Thanks for joining us this morning as we talk about East meets everywhere. So we all know that the entertainment industry gravity is indisputably shifting now. We're not just observing the trends of the rise of Asian content. So in this session, we're going to be analyzing strategies, data, investment philosophies driving it. So here we have our distinguished panel with us today, and I'll just let everyone just introduce themselves and a little bit about what they do. Over to you, Bing.
Thank you, Angel, and thank you to Jasper and Sheila for having us and the team, Brandon. I'm Bing Chen. I'm CEO of Gold House. We invest and distribute content and companies across the Pacific, particularly across the West. In a previous life, I built most of YouTube's foundational creator programs, including the Global Partner Program, vain things like the Gold Play button, and had the privilege of meeting Jasper and the team back at Brandon back then.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that. Bing, everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Frankie Apton-Chai. I'm on the Amazon Music side, principal industry relations from Los Angeles. I work across the collaborations across both Amazon for both our APAC division, but also working on strategies to obviously amplify Asian and Asian American artists on our platforms. So that's across music, sports, and culture.
Thank you. I'm Nobu Nakatake, working for Sony Music Entertainment Japan, based in Tokyo, looking after the global strategy at the headquarters. Sony Music Entertainment consists of over 20 the operating company in not only the music, but artist management, anime, movie, gaming, concert venue ticketing. So from the headquarters point of view, each company, each of the subsidiaries have their own international team. But as from the headquarters point of view, I'm looking after all the strategy through the Sony and Sony Corp and other third-party partnerships. So.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So first up, we're going to be talking about data. Like, what have we been seeing as a trend? So I'm going to start off with Bing, because you have such a unique vantage point of looking across all these multiple sectors, from music, gaming, film, TV series. What are some of the trends that you've been seeing from your role at Gold House, and that really confirms Asia's content as now a leading global powerhouse?
I think the first is historically global has sort of xenophobically or ethnocentrically meant going to the West. And the largest trend, of course, that we're all, and I think this entire room is complicit in, is ensuring that Asia doesn't need the West. Asia has Asia. And so typically 80% of content that's now consumed on most of the large video-based platforms are actually local or continentally based Asian content. So that would be number one. My favorite example is the continued rise of K-pop is cross-pollinating very nicely with Indian music. They're both heavily melodic, heavily lyrical, highly visually ornate, dance-based, so forth and so on. So that would be number one. The second is the creation of more cost-efficient creative IP. Everyone and their mother talks about IP. Very few people can define it. I would pose that it's codified by three elements. One is, have you built up a very engaged, cost-efficient base, ideally through a cost-efficient format? So historically, this has meant Star Wars. You have a multiple $100 million film. It's the Wizarding World. You have a multi-billion-dollar franchise in books. Now, of course, we're looking to more cost-efficient levers like gaming, webtoons, and so forth to adapt them. The second is, of course, endemic sequels. The fallacy that a lot of people make in the creative industry is they think you have to create sequels sequentially, meaning in order to have the Avengers, you have to have Nick Fury meet Tony Stark in Iron Man 1 or 2. There's a pro to that because you're highly invested in characters, but the con is it actually doesn't scale very rapidly. And fast forward, you have to pay Robert Downey Jr. $85 million to be in Avengers Doomsday. It's not scalable. And so we think actually rules-based franchises that creates sequels is more cost-efficient. Pokemon is the best example of this, where it doesn't matter who's in a successive season or generation, rather, as long as there are 150 characters, there's a protagonist, and you catch them all. And then the final trend within creativity is we're also really excited about not only monetizable extensions, everyone knows you need your cute little Labubu toy and plush and merch, but specifically making these useful. And this is for a variety of both cost as well as sort of retentive utility reasons. So instead of investing in a toy that has no real utility beyond fun, sorry to the children in the room who think that fun is a sustainable utility, but you instead invest in a beauty product or a food product or a fashion product. Final of the three trends is distribution. We all know how important this is. No offense to the wonderful platforms that are represented here and that we've all been complicit in building. But as a creative, I'm certain you know how difficult it is when you don't control the algorithm. And so we are particularly invested in the Pareto, the 20% of superfans that drive a disproportionate percentage of consumption, spending, and so forth that are not currently served on large platforms. You see them sort of exist on Reddit, Discord, OnlyFans, Patreon, so forth and so on, but we're particularly excited about them.
Amazing. And I know, Nobu, you have great insight to add on that from your perspective on anime and also Japanese export program.
Right, thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations on 20th anniversary of the All That Matter. And I'm remembering that I spoke at the very first the Music Matters back in 2016 in Hong Kong. At that time, at that panel, I was with 3 guys from Tokyo, music publishing head and the label guy and the artist management. And we talked about Japanese market as consumption place of international content. But never imagined that 20 years later, speaking about the Japanese content exploring the marketplace. So that it's very impressive. And Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the latest movie just out last month, and in the States this month. And I don't want to miss the number, so I wrote down. So it's now surpassed the $600 million the box office. This is the very first Japanese movie of all time hit the 600 million, the box office, and 67 million audience, which is enormous, and it's a social phenomenon. But that content started 9 years ago as the manga comic, and TV series started 2019. So it took 9 years to be skyrocketed in this level. So, incubating the fan bases and attracting all the fan bases with the bases, it took that long time, not an instant, quick success at all. That's what I want to share with you. And building the fan base on a global basis, it's such a tenacious the work. But that's the things that we are going to do for more with not only the anime, the gaming, but also the music. A lot of yesterday, the 3 panels with the Japanese industry people talked about the JP music, J-pop. But that's now it's the stage that the building the music fan base as well. Not only just taking advantage, but anime and gaming for the music, but artists themselves need to build their own the footprint outside of Japan. That's in challenging part as well.
That's really insightful how we see that there's so much success with Asian stories and Asian IP. And Frankie, you hold such a unique position for partnerships at Amazon, holding this white space, collaborating with Asian creators and stories. You have been such instrumental in forging these kind of cultural synergies. So would you be able to tell us how you've seen what has been really successful and what are some of the watch-outs from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Amazon and Amazon Music specifically, there's a lot of different arms for us as like a digital service provider. Obviously, like we have a streaming service, but we also have Twitch. So a lot of our live streaming, our experiences is building these fandom platforms to really find an immersive experience. So one of our partners with Amazon is Prime Video, and one of our big properties globally is the NFL and Thursday Night Football. There's over 26 million viewers average per week. So still to this day, Thursday Night Football is still a large piece of viewership for primetime television. A few years ago, we started a brand new series called Amazon Music Live. And what Amazon Music Live is, it's a live concert that's filmed right after the performance, or right after the game, that encapsulates the full artist experience. So a few years ago, we were pitching artists, and we're talking in the room, like, what are the artists that are gonna make sense? And of course, we're thinking about like Middle America, we're thinking about like a global footprint, but it's still predominantly in the US. So when we're talking about pitching artists, some artists that came to mind, I'm pitching K-pop artists, J-pop artists, Asian American artists, and there was not a reluctancy, but just like where would this audience fall? Why would this artist make sense? Just giving you some like high level of artists that we've had on our show. It's like Ed Sheeran, Meg Thee Stallion, Green Day. So last year, we had our first K-pop act, and we had Twice. And Twice was everyone was like, okay, Twice, right after Thursday Night Football, and the game. This is going to be at 9 p.m. Pacific time, which holds some challenges for the APAC audience. This is distributed globally, so Prime Video is distributed not only in North America, but also all across APAC. We saw record viewership, and it was just not only because of the fandom engine, but it encapsulated all the different pieces which made Amazon special. So we had an opportunity for, obviously, fans can tune in for free on Twitch and Prime Video. They had ways to interact into the chat to get free incentives. And then also there was an actual fan experience. So it was a secret show in LA where 500 fans got to come for free, and essentially we donated all of the portions to a foundation that both Twice and management wanted to advocate for. So there's like a lot of great storytelling here, and for us, it kind of just demonstrates like you can put APAC artists in any forum and you'll find that lever of success. So I think for us, like, this is hopefully the start of many more partnerships. We've done amazing global live streams for both 88 Rising and Head in the Clouds, bringing artists from all over the world to bringing KCON to a global audience as well. So we're really excited to continue to grow and obviously, like, as you say, trying to fill in that white space.
Thank you so much for the work that you do at Amazon. That is definitely such a great space to be able to collaborate very traditional kind of Western formats and with Asian artists as well. So I know there's a lot of Asian creators and rights holders, labels and publishers here. And one of the questions that I get also a lot is how do you build a global audience when you are perhaps an emerging Asian artist that's just coming out? So I'm going to throw this question to Nobu because you have such great experience with Japanese export in music and anime, looking at a very traditional local IP and then having such major global success. Would you be able to share what are some of the challenges and also what have been some of the successes that you've done with that?
Right. Well, for gaming and anime, now we built the solid the fan base outside of Japan. It took over 30 years, but gradually they paid a lot of the blood, sweat, tears, and then the money into the marketplaces and established. But when it comes to the music, by the way, I've been working for the labels for over 30 years, so my expertise is in music. And I started the real international exploring team for music and labels 6 years ago. And luckily, the Sony Music has the subsidiary of the anime studio, Aniplex, and the gaming publishing, the company as well. So we're working closely and getting the great collaborations like, for featuring our artists for main theme and ending theme, which is the big driver to deliver our music to the global fan bases and audiences. But our challenging is that it's still the Japanese music and the listeners it's just song business still. It's the biggest difference from the K-pop business and the K-pop artists. They are running the big fan community and they're running the super fan business. But when it comes to J-pop, still not many artists has their own great fan base. But still, getting the subscription streamings. But when it comes to their own the tour outside of Japan, it's still poor. So that's a challenging and building the fan base. We're still on a learning process. Learning together with the artists and the artist management how we can build the global fan bases. That's challenging things. Taking advantage of that anime, the collaboration, how we can turn the audience into super fans. We have the great touching point, entry point with the anime, but walk those listeners through the funnel from the listeners, light listeners to the listeners and a fan and a super fan. That's the challenging things in that. Yeah.
Bing, anything to add on that, especially when we hear stories about how artists do struggle to navigate with cultural authenticity, but yet at the same time be able to create content for global impact?
I think of it in two ways. I think one is to be as specific as possible. It's somewhat counterintuitive in the arts to invoke constraints in order to be more creatively expansive, but as you know very well in Netflix, this is actually the best place to start. When I think about specificity, I think about sort of three different levers, and the punchline is one can actually engage many of these, and we're seeing the hybridization of these become an increasing trend among the younger groups. But the first is interest-based. So music is a very easy example of a great interest. Twitch honestly should not have existed if YouTube was doing its job in gaming, and yet did exist, right? So number one is super serving that specific interest category. The second is identity-based. So do you super serve, Frankie was mentioning, different minority groups are priorities across Amazon Music. I remember in the early days of the creator economy in YouTube, the majority of the top 12 categories were dominated by the Asian diaspora, the African diaspora, and the LGBTQ community because they didn't have enfranchisement in traditional media, so they had to find other outlets. So that would be number two. And then third is, of course, proximity. Netflix nails this, YouTube nails this. But when country or locale equals language equals genre, you can also invest there. So my message would first be start with one or two or three of those. Don't feel like you need to speak to everyone, because when you do, you speak to no one. And then the second, to double click on what Nobu says, to invoke an aphorism from music, is you'd rather have 1,000 fans pay you $1,000 each than 1,000,000 fans pay you $1 each. Now, we can all do the math. Those both equal $1 million. But the reason you would rather have the former is because those people are much more rabid. They're likely early adopters. They're likely evangelists in their own right. We all have, for instance, the friend who tells us about the new restaurant or the new concert series and so forth. And there's cachet there. And so the question is, how do you actually harness these people at an execution level? I have forever thought about this in sort of four modalities, and the acronym is ACEs. So the first is closer access to the IP or creator you love. Can you give disproportionate access, whether it's early windowed access, a micro window, meaning literally a minute extra, or getting them earlier in line if you have a sneaker drop. So that would be number one. These people really value that. By the way, this is no particular order. Second is C, so content. I don't love this one because content's extremely, at least at this point, expensive. But the idea would be behind the scenes, exclusive content, and so forth. Theoretically, you could use AI to sort of accelerate that. Third is E, experiences that money cannot buy. This typically is merchandising, branded content, or events. I realize these don't scale necessarily, so you can think about this both as in-person and digital events, as well as ensuring that you're ritualizing them. To go down this path, my favorite model for the most powerful cultural institution in the world is the church. I mean this illustratively, so you pick your faith, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and so forth. Every faith is structured very similarly, even if they don't believe in the same thing. And one of the big lessons is, at least in the Christian church, for instance, you know instinctively that you go to church every Sunday. This ritual or repeatability makes it expected, even though the substance of the sermon that happens at church, the food in the barbecue afterwards, may be distinct. And so ritualizing these experiences is really important. And then finally is S for status. Status does not mean just your sort of banal badges or title, are you a centurion card owner? It's not just that. It's also, do you have rights and privileges that disproportionately advantage you beyond the average fan? So one concrete example of this is if you're an individual creator or IP holder, at some point it becomes impossible to manage your entire fan base and what they believe and so forth. Can you empower several of them to actually manage for you or curate for you or can control comments for you? So those are I think, two sets of principles that we use to think about this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That is definitely very actionable insight that a lot of people here can take away. And conversely, Frankie, you've seen a whole myriad of artists that always comes to you to be pitched for you to kind of use your platform to give them that voice. So conversely, with your collective experience in platforms and looking at all these different partnerships, what is that one classic mistake or outdated strategy that Asian creators should actually stop doing? And really follow Bing's advice here.
That's a good question. I honestly feel like to this day, one of the biggest challenge for Asian artists was essentially finding their own identity and finding their own lane. I think it's just figuring out that level of authenticity that's starting to resonate deeper, both on foreign language level. That's how like the music is reciprocated from the way that you dress, from fashion to the culture, and really like representing what's authentic and true. I think one of the best collaborations that I saw all of last year was when Meg Thee Stallion brought Yuki Chiba on. I think everything from like the stylistic of the video to both having Japanese and English incorporated into the track. It was such a dynamic change. And also too, like if you're not a purist of just different hip hop that's happening in Japan, he used to go by Ko, like people are like, this is a new artist. I'm like, this artist has been around for amount of time. We were working on a campaign with Meg during Prime Day, and we were doing a number of different levers, whether we had a documentary, we had, Meg was literally, she did our Prime Day song for Amazon. And I remember when we were talking about this collaboration, this video came out, and the rollout, it was everything from like the authenticity of how Meg obviously loves the culture. She represents in so many different ways. And then with Yuki Chiba, like this to me, like this is a great opportunity to show collaboration in an authentic manner, from the music video to the titling. So I definitely feel like when we want to get behind certain campaigns, these are the ones where I always feel like we feel the closest to. And we're also seeing it in the analytics. I mean, like all these different collaborations between Western artists and Asian artists, they've become fast and furious in the last few years, but some have reciprocated huge numbers. Rosé and Bruno had the fastest billion on YouTube. I think the fastest 2 billion, I believe now. And I think that's also because, very similarly, there was a lever of foreign language, there was a lever of like authenticity, it was obviously a story that people had to understand, what did this word mean? What is this game? And then like, not having these challenges against traditional Western norms, it was something where it found its place very, very authentic. So I definitely, for the artist level, I'm really excited to see these new levels of collaboration, and really excited to see what's going to happen in the coming year.
Yeah, Nobu, you have something to add?
Yeah, Frank, it's a great example that you introduced, and then Yuki Chiba and Megan Thierry on that. And also, it's very important that collaboration between the artist with another artist, it gotta be has the narrative, and also it gotta be organic. Because it used to be asked by the many our signing artists, hey, Sony Music, can you hook me up with that artist in America, for a collaboration or remix or producing. The label has the connection with the artist a lot, but when it comes to do collaboration or producing whatsoever, artists should communicate with the artist. Artist needs to dive into the artist community, sending the direct message all over the X or the Instagram whatsoever. But I've been encouraging the artist, you should go to that artist you want to work with and send a message. That's the things that have to happen. We can set up the collaboration or that opportunity, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't work. Artists should speak with the same language with the artist or creator. That's very important things. And I believe that Yuki Chiba thinks that it happened with that way.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to go to our last question as we're running out of time. So some parting words of wisdom to everybody here in the room. I'm going to ask each of you, for those Asian creators looking to break out globally right now, what is that most important action or thing that they need to be doing or double downing on for the next 6 to 12 months? And we'll start with you, Bing.
This is really disgusting to say out loud. There is unfortunately a very high direct correlation between the volume of content created and the size of audience and rapidity that you grow. And so the number one thing, if I were a creator, agnostic of genre, language, and so forth, is to use AI to 100x how much content I'm making and to ensure that it's ubiquitous. This, of course, is disgusting because as a human being who loves high art, is AI content, creator content, we can debate that existentially all day long. But without question, that is, I would become a content farm for myself. That was so. Some of you are not actually riled by that, so maybe you two are disgusting. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, one lane that I would like encourage Asian and Asian American artists, something that I'm working on currently, it's with the Grammys and the Recording Academy. A few years ago, we found there wasn't nominations and there wasn't artists being present in some of these major tentpole events. As we know, an award show, just many of them globally, but obviously the Recording Academy and the Grammys has such a high prestige. It's the only peer-nominated award, and there was definitely not like a lane for Asian artists to be represented. So a few years ago, we started the Gold Music Alliance with a few co-founders, Kevin Nishimura and John Yip, and we worked in collaboration with Gold House and Recording Academy to create this arm. So I'm encouraging artists to be involved. I think they need to be involved both on the local level, but also in the global level. I think there's a lot of siloing within their own territories. I want to make sure that there's an opportunity and there's different lanes. So if you're a content creator, you're an artist, you're a label manager, please get involved in these different spaces. I'm here to like field this conversation separately. If you guys are ever curious to getting your artists or your executives involved, I think we need to pull a bigger platform and to push to have greater representation in these rooms. And with that, I think that's going to help out with this mass amount of content that happens every week. I think there's over 500,000 commercial releases that are aggregated every 3 to 4 days. So, I mean, like, let's cut through all of these different layers and try to be in these rooms where we can make an impact. So, definitely being more involved globally.
My advice is would be distinct with respecting your culture and identity, not copying, the Western top hit chart songs whatsoever, as an Asian, as a Japanese, as a Korean, whatsoever. Also, engagement, communication, and connection with the fans, from the scratch. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all your insightful insights. It's really actionable and it definitely tips that everyone can take away from. So Bing, Frankie, and Nobu, thank you guys for your time and joining us. And that concludes our panel for this morning. Thank you, everybody.